4 years ago this week, I published Tell Me More About That, and I had no idea what was going to happen next. But since then, the book has traveled far and wide, from little libraries across the country onto people's bookshelves, from TV and print into conversations in organizations, in churches, in universities, and into personal dialogue and discussion. And it's actually changed people's relationships. And actually, just recently, something happened to my Peloton bike that made me realize that this work is taking on a life of its own. And so today, I want us to celebrate that and share what I've been learning about finding joy in performance. From Olympic figure skaters to writing to baking to my own kneecap recovery journey. And I want to talk about some of the stories and ideas that have been on my mind lately. So let's dive in. Before we go too far, I want to make a quick shout out that Empathy Week is coming soon. Empathy Week's a global event that helps give students the skills that they need to use empathy in their day-to-day life and to help make the world a better place. So if you are an educator or you know somebody that's in education or PTA or a teacher, share this video with them, share the link that's in the show notes. Empathy Week is March 9th through 13th, and there's also some great videos on Empathy Studios, which hopefully will be a collaborator to this video, but I've also put that link down there. They've got their own separate channel with some amazing videos, so go check that out. Did you get a chance to watch the Olympics? Did you see Alyssa Liu's amazing gold medal winning free skate? She's only 20 years old, and 4 years ago, she stepped away. She retired after the Winter Olympics because I think she didn't want the pressure. She wasn't happy, and she went to figure herself out and to find the joy in what she was doing. And 2 years ago, she returned to skating, and now the interviews that she's been in, she's talked about how she really loves the performance, and she focuses on the artistry and the performance aspect and working with the crowd. The judging is all secondary, like the medals, the winning, that's all great, but it's really about the performance that motivates her. And I found that so insightful and revelatory. And quite honestly, the fact that she even just performed to MacArthur Park by Donna Summer, I thought that was medal worthy in and of itself because it was so different and refreshing from everything else we were listening to. So kudos to her for that. But also that stepping back, that retirement that she had and the journey that she went on, it really gave her that chance to have perspective. And when you compare that to Ilya Malinin, the quad god, who unfortunately fell from the heavens during his final free skate performance and ended up finishing 8th, he was a totally different experience where it was his very first Olympics. He let the pressure of the Olympics and the pressure to perform, and everybody was expecting he was going to skate off with the gold, and that got to him, and he cracked under pressure, unfortunately. But there's lessons to be learned from that as well. And the thing that I really took away from this was when you let the pressure get to you and you focus on the pressure just intensifies. It gets worse and worse and worse. I think about my own experiences back when I was a competitive swimmer growing up, or even in my career, the times when I would let myself get psyched out, worried about the competitor, worried about the stakes of the event, rather than finding the joy in the story or the performance and what it was that I was about to do, and making sure that you practice so that you know you've got the confidence in your abilities that, hey, I can do this. I know this. I can, skate forwards and backwards. I can't skate at all, but you get my idea. And having that confidence gives you the capability to then find the joy. If you understand what brings you joy in the work that you're doing, that means you're going to be able to do something that is above and beyond what anybody expects. And so now when I think about going on stage, when I'm giving a talk about empathy, regardless of the size, for me, the joy comes in the engagement with the audience, seeing the light bulbs go off in people's heads when they're getting one of the concepts that I'm presenting, realizing how they can actually apply some of these tools into it. And that is what I'm doing this for. Hopefully I'm going to get good marks, and I usually do, but it's really about the helping other people. When I see that that's happening, when I see that they're responding, that they're having fun playing the ice cream game or whatever other exercise we're doing, that brings me joy. And that's really key. So focus on what matters so that you can give the performance that the audience loves, and that in and of itself is going to be worthy of gold. I also really quickly want to touch back on toxic empathy. I've been talking about that a lot lately. I wrote about it and spoke about it last summer. I returned to Good Things Utah in the beginning of January for a segment about it. You can find those links. All of these links are going to be in the Reading Between the Lines newsletter link to this edition that's in the show notes, and you're going to find a ton of links to a lot of different things. But the thing that I wanted to point out, David French, who writes an opinion column for the New York Times, he, in a recent column, very directly took to task the religious right who've weaponized empathy in the name of Christianity and calling for toxic empathy. And as this thing, we can't use empathy because it's toxic. It clouds our judgment. We're not able to make good decisions. And I'm very grateful that he calls this out. He really points out that empathy is the basis of the teachings of Christ. Like, Jesus Christ was great for what he did because of the empathy that he had for other people, the suffering of other people, and that turned into the compassion and the acts that he was able to do. And so David French points out how hypocritical it is of people to be selective in who they have empathy with. So again, that's a link that's in the newsletter. That is worth checking out and going deeper if you did not see that itself on your own. But to me, as I think about those things, I find it kind of ironic that people that are doing this, that are weaponizing empathy, telling us that it's toxic, first of all, don't believe them. Don't ever for a moment think that empathy is something that we shouldn't embrace. It's a feature of being human. It's not a flaw. It's not a bug that needs to be fixed. And the irony of all of this is that these individuals, in order to gain access to power and to wealth, which I think about the 7 deadly sins, these individuals have really sold their souls to their own devil. And it's sad. And to me, when you start to look at it from that perspective, you start to realize, like, okay, yeah, that's a flaw in their thinking and their systems, and that maybe we should just go on and be empathetic and be human, because that's what it's all about. I wanted to move on and talk about a few different books. I recently finished The Inherited Mind by James Longman. He is ABC News' chief international correspondent. And in this book, he chronicles mental illness and the illnesses that have plagued his members of his own family, and actually took the life of several of them, including his father, who died by suicide as a result of schizophrenia when James was only 9 years old. So in the book, it's a combination of his personal journey to understand who his father was as a man, as a person, as well as the effects of the illness on him. But then he also looks at his own narrative, James's own story, and his own battles with mental illness. And then you also get some great behind the scenes, being a journalist, going into war zones and other events that he covers. And then he does explore the science behind mental illness and what neuroscientists understand about the relationship and the hereditary links between schizophrenia, bipolar, and how those things may be passed down through the generations. Seems like there's still a lot more work to be done, but there's definitely very strong indications that it can be passed down generationally, and that's something we should all be aware of so that we understand how to treat it. I enjoyed the book. I will be totally honest. The sections where he goes into detail about the science, as somebody who had to take Intro to Biopsychology twice, and I still only got a C, I struggled with those sections, but I'm a journalist wannabe and I'm a natural storyteller. So all the behind the scenes and the human stories that he shared in dealing with a narcissistic mother, dealing with, the challenging relationship he's had with her, and then the raw emotions of his father's death and the really touching conversations he had with some of his father's caretakers and friends from his father's early adulthood, those were all really worthwhile. So I do recommend the book. And then I also got a really cool surprise reading the acknowledgments on page 286. James credits John Jelly, who gave him his first job in news. And I read that. I was like, well, hold on, because I know John Jelly. He used to live here in San Francisco and we were friends, and he's now living in New York. Had lost touch over the years, but reading his name in the book prompted me to reach out. So I'm back in touch. So thank you, James Longman, for reconnecting me to a long lost friend. If you live in a small household, cooking can be challenging because recipes are usually written for 4 to 6 to 8 people. And so as a result, they're either really difficult to downsize or you end up with leftovers for a week, and not everybody enjoys leftovers. So fortunately, somebody that I know started a business, a website called Our Table for Two. And she's just launched a cookbook called Around Our Table for Two. Pam Worley, I've known her since 2008. She worked in insights and marketing. She was a client, and I've followed her along and been supporting of her new journey. And so she's got this cookbook out, as well as a community that she's built on her website. There's a newsletter. She's got, I think, moving into Substack now as well. But this cookbook is all recipes for 2 people. So it's all scaled down. And I decided that I would give one a try. And so this is actually the Fudgy Brownie recipe from the cookbook that I made this afternoon. Let's give it a try. Oh my God. This is really good. It's fudgy and chocolatey. And if you read the moldy pancake chapter in my book, you know this isn't the usual response I would give if I was trying something on a marketing research project. This delivers. This is really serious. So one more bite and then we're going to keep going. So check out Around Our Table for Two. Join our community. I'm putting a link to ourtablefor2.com in the show notes, and you can navigate from there, whether you get the newsletter with the recipes or check out the book. I will say that I've been inspired. There was a croque monsieur recipe in this cookbook, and so I'm going to make that tonight for dinner and actually add some eggs, so I will have croque madame. So looking forward to that. Now, can't believe it's been 4 years since this came out. Jessie Finkelstein, who's my publisher at Page 2, before the book launched, as she and I were talking about it and kind of thinking about business and how this will all go, she did say that she felt like my book would have a long tail, or it would have legs, that it would remain relevant and applicable for audiences for years to come. The stories are universal and have application for people. And I continue to have people come up to me and share how they've been touched. Whether I recently had another mom come up and tell me that she started following the title of the book and said, "Tell me more about that," with her kids. And that changed the way she was talking to her kids and interacting with them. And I've heard that from several moms. And apparently it's been a really profound change because their kids are opening up in ways that they'd never heard before. So it's allowing them to help their kids more. It's bringing them closer to their kids in a more meaningful way. And that means a lot. It really means a lot to hear that. Additionally, I was on a podcast called Over a Pint Marketing Podcast. Again, link in the comments, and just go check out the Reading Between the Lines newsletter online for everything. But the host, Pat McGovern, read the book cover to cover. And so we had a really great conversation. He referred to them as characters, but they're actually real people. But the characters in the book and the stories that were in there and how those had inspired him and the lessons that he was taking from them and how they resonated with him. And so we were able to talk about that and the different steps of the 5 steps to empathy, and how my experience with Emma Jean really taught me more about how to ask good questions and what that meant. Or the story about Ryan, who worked in online sales, which we was able to uncover was actually of the adults entertainment variety. And that was because I was asking good questions, I was listening, and I was following up. And that story appears in the Let's Talk About Sex section. So that tells you what adult entertainment is. But Really great conversation. If you want to hear more about that, the application of empathy into marketing, a great place to go. I'd also love to hear from you if you have read the book. I would love to hear like which stories resonated with you. I'd like to actually do something with that in an upcoming issue or episode. So please let me know. You can put it into the comments here. You can email me, rob@robvolpe.expert. I will definitely put that in the show notes and we will go from there. And then finally, I had slipped, fell, broke my kneecap back in April of last year, really long road to recovery. And I finally was getting back onto the Peloton to exercise. Peloton, if you're not a member, when you hit the 100, 200, 300th ride, run, walk, whatever the activity is, if you're on a live class, the instructor sees on their display who's on there and celebrating a milestone. So I had the kneecap injury. I was at 898 rides. I was 2 away from 900. And then jump ahead to November of 2025. And I had been doing some very general, loose, easy cycling as part of my PT, but was needing to get into the exercise again and the actual riding with resistance and a trainer and all of that. So I set it up so that my 900th ride was with my favorite instructor, Christine Dercollet. And as it turned out, she had a 45-minute ride scheduled. And what that meant was there were more opportunities to hear from the instructor and the shout outs to all the people, because there's hundreds, if not thousands of people on every class and everybody's looking to do the same thing. So you're kind of the longer the ride, the more likely the chance. And so while we were riding, it was like the last 6 minutes of class and I was getting a little like, oh, I don't know if she's going to get to me or saw me or whatever. And, that is what that is. But then all of a sudden, she called out empathy activist and not only recognized me, but also then told people that they needed to check out my book. And I was blown away. I practically fell off the bike. I could not believe it. I actually ended up taking the ride again 2 days later, just so I could record that, which I did. I will link that video here as well, but that was amazing, meant so much. And if you're not familiar with her, I had sent her a copy of the book right after it had launched, and a lot of her work, aside from being a world-class cyclist and a Peloton instructor, she talks about self-talk and helps people change from negative self-talk to more positive self-talk, which then opens doors so you can move forward and do great things. And empathy plays a role in that. It's critical in how you're thinking and relating to yourself and to other people, and that self-talk and understanding where all of those things came from. So I thought she would enjoy the book. So I sent it to her. There's no real expectations when I send a book off like that, because I figure people are getting a ton of books, who knows? And she had at one point acknowledged on an Instagram live, she saw that I was on it and she acknowledged that she got the book, but then I never heard anything else. And again, no expectations. And then all of a sudden, boom. And that's when I talk about the book taking on a life of its own. These are all seeds that are getting planted, and you don't know when those things are going to take root and grow and help people. And when I'm going to hear from somebody who, was able to improve their relationship with their child, with their colleague, with their neighbor, with their boss, with their spouse, because they read the book and got some lessons. So, meant so much in that moment, was a great reminder. And my ask to all of you is if you would please help spread the word for these next 4 years. Let's plant some more seeds. If you can share, tap like, subscribe to this video, my YouTube channel. Also share it on yours, share it with other people. Go check out my website, robvolpe.expert. That's definitely in the show notes. Buy a copy of the book, listen to it, read it, share it. If you've already read it or want to, buy a copy, put it in a little library in your neighborhood. All of those things help, because the more we get it out there, the more people will understand how empathy can help them, help others, and help make the world a better place all around. So that's it for this edition of Reading Between the Lines. Thank you for joining me. I'm Rob Volpe, and I will see you next time. Thanks a lot.